Hello everyone, welcome back to Forever United TV, bringing you the constant content regarding Manchester United. You know the score. We are always bringing you different types of content as well. And I'm pleased to invite onto the channel for the first time ever, Alice from Alice Talks Football. Thank you for coming on, Alice. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me on, Adam. I'm doing good. I'm feeling positive. I think a change in manager was needed, and I think that Amorim could be potentially very exciting.
Yes, and I think we've all been a bit excited this week. I did a show this morning, Alice, and it was like I was just talking about the time span from like Monday to now and what's happened in 1 week. Quickly, just go over. I know we've done a show with Flex on United View before together, but your emotions of the week and like how it's all gone down. You trying to fit in this news and get through your normal week with everything that's been going on because it's been mental, hasn't it?
Oh, David Ornstein, man, he just drops a bomber like that. Ten Hag's been
No.
sacked because we're like, we kind of know that Ten Hag's going to be sacked, but we keep getting told he's going to be sacked, and he's not been sacked. So it was actually kind of a surprise because we're like, oh, they'll probably wait till the November international break. I wasn't actually expecting him to be sacked. So Ornstein drops that bomber. Then I'm like, oh, who's it going to be? Ruud van Nistelrooy, this and that. Loads of speculation. And then a couple hours later, he's like, yeah, by the way, Ruben Amorim's almost a done deal. So I'm like, well, clearly they've been working on that a little bit behind the scenes for a bit. So the last week has been crazy, but I like that within like 24 hours of Ten Hag being announced, sacked, we've basically got Ruben Amorim in the door. So we don't have that speculation or the media making up that Southgate story. So but hectic.
We were all worried that that was coming. It was. Do you know what it was? You said it. You've nailed it there, Alice. It was pretty much right. Ten Hag's gone. It's like, whoa, euphoria off. Everything. It's time to turn a page, and automatically you go into that sort of like worrying phase of like, all right, who's next? But thankfully, like you said, that they had someone lined up, and it was like, right, let's go. And it was like, oh God, thank God that I didn't have to make content about why Southgate shouldn't be coming to United, why this manager should not be coming to United. I was like, you've just taken that out. You dropped the bomb on us, but thanks for actually making the rest of the week a little bit easier with having a manager lined up. But we are talking Amorim in this video, Alice. Obviously, I know that you have done a lot of content before. You've done it on your other channel as well when he was probably favoured to go to Liverpool in the summer. So you know a lot about Amorim. So I'm not going to ask the obvious questions. So let's get into what happens now for Manchester United. We know where we're up to with the move. We know what's happening, when he's going to be coming in, what game he's going to be taking first. But it's now sort of the unknown because he has got, like 7 months to work with this squad right now.
Mm.
What excites you the most with the connection of Amorim and the players that we have got in particular? What do you feel he's going to bring in the here and now with him?
I think the most important thing for me might be midfield structure. I feel like our midfield, and it doesn't matter who plays, but I just think the midfield under Ten Hag was just like, if you're a midfielder, your job's going to be nearly mission impossible. I felt that, even in the Tottenham game when Maino and Agati played together, which is the pivot I think I've wanted to see and most people wanted to see, they got run around. We saw Casemiro get done in the Liverpool game. And I said, while I think individuals can improve, we've lacked legs in midfield. I felt that the setup was just making, Maino's job really difficult. And Maino's a player that's so young and needs to be nurtured. And I think Aaron coming in, hopefully will just give us a little bit more structure there in the midfield, utilise the profile of Agati correctly, which I think we're going to see Agati do really well. I think Maino could be a really good partner for Agati. He obviously had one of his best partnerships was Paulinho and Nunes. Paulinho I think is now at Bayern, Nunes is at Manchester City. He's been a bit hit and miss at City, but I think he's on the way up. And I feel like that Agati and Maino can sort of recreate those roles, and I think that would suit them really, really well. And I just think for me, my biggest issue with Ten Hag this season was I felt that Ten Hag wasn't getting the best out of our players, which sort of relates to what I'm saying. I feel like, of course, there's a few questions about how he's going to use the wing backs. I don't think we've got out and out wing backs. Maybe Shaw if he could stay fit, but I just don't think Shaw's going to stay fit. In my head, he's gone. But I think we'll see. Hopefully, Amad Diallo be utilised and played, and we'll see maybe a better Rashford, because I know Rashford's been a bit hit and miss, but Ten Hag's last game against West Ham, he was practically playing Rashford as a right back. Like, what is he doing? So I think it's just to see a manager come in and hopefully just utilise the players and actually get the best out of them, because I don't think the players are amazing, but I do think that they're a lot better than what we've been seeing under Ten Hag this season.
100% agree with that. You kind of took the next question out, really, in terms of Ten Hag. What do you feel Amorim I know you touched on that a little bit then. What do you feel Amorim is going to do different to Ten Hag at this instance now? It's like same group of players. What do you feel United fans can look forward to? Obviously, you touched on it there, but actually, I said that wrong there in a way. What do you feel like Ten Hag was doing wrong with these players that you know that Amorim is probably going to sort out as soon as he comes in? What was the biggest issue with Ten Hag and this squad right now? Was it simply down to misprofiling? Was it down to not enough consistency with the starting lineup, players not being able to get a rhythm or any sort of form like it's been complained about? What was the biggest issue for you with Ten Hag that you feel Amorim's going to fix, or you hope he'll fix straight away?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a multitude of problems with Ten Hag. I think one problem, and it comes less tactical, but I just felt like the players were mentally gone under Ten Hag. And I know they shouldn't give up on the manager and they shouldn't be mentally gone under him, but it almost felt like versus Leicester, and obviously it was a weak and Leicester sign, that a weight was lifted off their shoulder a little bit. And I think we had that with Mourinho, and then Ollie came in and we were like a different side, because I think the players have been so drained by Mourinho that I actually feel that while Ten Hag was getting a lot wrong, I touched about the misprofiling and just how bad it was set up. I also just the way Ahmad was smiling when Rude was bringing him on, and the way everyone was smiling as well. I do think some of it might just be communication and mood around the camp, which I don't like to say, but I felt in that Leicester game that those players just looked a lot happier. And then again, as I touched upon earlier, it's just, I felt that we were bad, but I actually got to the point where, you know, when it was 3-3 versus Porto and De Ligt and Leach had this disaster, I was like, I know De Ligt, I think, has been good every game bar that game for us. And I was like, I'm not going to like give De Ligt and Leach too much stick. De Ligt wasn't even in the top 5 centre-backs that were signed this summer, but I think he's been all right. But I said the way that we were set up, it was just like chaos. We were just people running at De Ligt and Leach, running at De Ligt and Leach. We went to the Villa game, he parked the bus, so Johnny Evans and Maguire had a much easier job and sort of set up a bit better defensively there. But then when we parked the bus, there was nothing going forward. And I think it's just the way we've got to set up to protect the defence, get the best out of the defence, get the best out of midfield, get the best out of the attack. It's just actually, rather than doing what Ten Hag's been trying to do and not working, or playing this not to lose football because he knows his job's on the line, let's look at the profiles in our squad and let's say what's going to get the best out of them. And I think Amorim will have his system in place. But the good thing about Amorim's system is he's proven to get the best out of all his midfielders. You know, Palhinha, Agate, Nunes, you know, he's had all these sort of midfield pivots. And because Sporting is a selling club, they have to sell a lot. And then he has to adapt, bring a new midfielder, and he gets the best out of them. Wing backs, obviously, is another one that I think Nuno Mendes is another one. Pedro Porro, he's done really well with them. So I think it's wing backs and midfielders. He has a thing for really getting the best out of them. And wing backs a question mark at United. I don't see Delo as a wing back or really Mascherano as a wing back, but I think hopefully, just as I touched upon earlier, improvements.
Well, that's it. It's like we can look ahead to the future, but we have got a longer run of games now and a lot left of this season. I think it's where we look at what Amorim can do. It is with the right type of profile of player. Obviously, recruitment is going to be big. We'll touch on that in a minute, but I think we have to just accept that we are dealing with players that are broken. We are dealing with players that have picked up bad habits. Confidence is as low as I've ever seen it amongst a group of Manchester United players. And Amorim has got to come in and do that with his bare hands and his coaches. He has to install what was the biggest point you picked up on there, Alice, was the confidence in the players, like the mentality that he's got to install into these players. That's one thing that will definitely, I feel, help Manchester United climb that table and get to that top 4. Because I'm not writing top 4 off. Everyone calls me crazy. I'm still clinging on to it because I believe that these players, they're all full-on international players who all play well for their countries. We're all in great form for their countries. I just cannot have that they don't turn up in a United shirt. Like, there is someone out there, a manager, that can definitely get more out of these players. And I think you nailed it there. Like, the biggest issue with Ten Hag is not installing that confidence in these players. I think they fell out of love with him and they fell out of confidence with his tactics. I think you were dead on that one there. But if you was Amorim right now walking in, Alice, you're lining up against Ipswich. I'm guessing Ipswich because that's the game that we're all being told. We'll find out more tonight, obviously, because he's going to be speaking after the game and he said that he's going to clarify everything. Thankfully. What are you playing? How are you? It's a tough one, this, because he's got to come in that international break. Half of the team are going to be away, and he's got to find a way of installing what he wants to do in that first game because the pressure's on. It is. what way would you set this United team up? What way do you think Amorim would set them up, and who would you play in that team? Going off what you've seen of Amorim and what we've got available squad-wise, who suits the best right now for a full team for United?
It's difficult because I think with Euro sort of injured and on the way back, I don't think he'll throw him in at the deep end. Maguire's injured. Lindelof, I just think is rubbish, to be honest. And
with you on that one.
Johnny Evans, look, I like Johnny Evans, but he shouldn't be starting for Manchester United. Like, we're Manchester United. So it's difficult because I think he will play three at the back. But I'm also like, well, if we haven't got Luke Shaw and we haven't got Malacia, do I want Delo as a left wing back or Ramaz as a left wing back? There's questions about it. I think if everybody was fit, I would do three at the back. If Luke Shaw could stay fit, he would be left wing back, Leacher, De Ligt, Yoro, and then either Delo or Masraoui is the right wing back. That would be your back five. Probably a Garte, Meno pivot. And then your front three is sort of very narrow. It's almost like a striker, more of a shadow striker, and it's almost like a left forward. Now, I think left forward could suit Rashford because he's going to be much higher and much narrower. Højlund would be the Gyökeres role of striker. And then the question mark would be the position behind Højlund, which, you know, could Bruno do a job there, or will he play Bruno deeper as an 8? Because obviously Meno is currently injured and Bruno has played as an 8 for Portugal and in the past. But he could play Bruno higher because Ten Hag's often been playing him higher. Van Nistelrooy has in that last game. It was more of a 4-4-2. Xerxes, I think if we're going to get the best out of Xerxes, it probably would be playing him with Højlund, I actually think. And then you've got players like Ahmad who can, you know, play as a 10, play as a winger. So I think in that sort of shadow striker, right forward role, he could work well. And then you've even got Mason Mount, but I mean, at this point, I just don't expect him to come back from injury. So I think with everybody fit, he'd go for that. With the next game coming up, he did adapt once or twice to a 4-2-3-1, I believe, when he had a few injuries. So maybe he starts in a 4-2-3-1 with maybe Mazraoui left back, Delo right back, Leacher and De Ligt as centre backs. I will say, I think Harry Amas, I don't know if he's physically or defensively ready, but I think in terms of the wing back profile, could be someone he starts to bring through when he has a back three. And I think left back, when we touch on transfers, I think left back in January could be one looked at 100%. But yeah, I think the pivot would be a Garte Meno if everybody's fit. And then if it is a 4-3-1, he'd probably play Bruno as a 10. Højlund up top, Rashford on the left. I think he might prefer Rashford to Garnacho just because what he likes in his forwards being narrower. And then I would probably say Ahmad on the right for a little bit of balance because he can come in centrally more.
Yeah, you look at that there, like you mentioned Bruno. I was waiting for you to mention him to see where he came in. I think he's the one that everybody's going to be intrigued to see because I don't think Ten Hag has got the best out of Bruno. I think Bruno's been at his worst. Well, Ten Hag has been the manager. I don't think he knows how to utilize him, or did, sorry. But in a 3-4-3, for instance, I don't know if Bruno gets in. And I'm scratching my head as to, because I think this is a time for Agate and Menu, ideally in our middle two. That's how I would do it, because I know he's going to play Agate because he knows his system. And that's not saying that because it's obvious. I just feel like Agate was brought in to United to do a job from what was created by Amorim at Sporting. I don't think Enrique could utilize him. I don't think Agate suited well PSG wanted to play in Ligue 1. And I feel like he will be the mainstay. You cannot leave Kobbie Mainoo out of this side, I don't think. I think the team needs building around him, and I think he will. And I'm running out of space for Bruno Fernandes. And I'm thinking maybe this manager above anyone else is the one that sees off Bruno, Alice, more than anything right now, because I know there's that Jose Mourinho statement that says he drops into a 4-5-1 as well, but it's still just as intense. Do you read anything into what Jose's saying with that? I mean, I haven't personally, from what I've seen this, I don't know what he's talking about, but have you seen anything? I know you watch a lot of football. Is there been any cases where this has happened with him? Because I haven't seen much of it.
No, it's not something that I've picked up on much. When I was doing my research, the thing I picked up on most was actually like in build-up, he did a bit of a 3-1-6, which is what Ten Hag tried to do in that second pre-season he had. And then
The
obviously
disaster.
yeah.
Yeah.
And Martinez got like injured, and then he couldn't do that because Martinez was injured, and that's what he wanted to do. Not obviously this season, but last season he couldn't do that. So I was like, well, actually, Amorim sort of deployed that at Sporting with Agate being the 1 in the 3-1-6. So that was more that I touched upon, if anything, rather than obviously what Mourinho was saying. But again, I think Bruno is the biggest question mark, because the way I feel about Bruno is, if you get the best out of Bruno, I don't think we have a better player in this team if you get the best out of Bruno, which might be a bit of a controversial statement, but we know what he can do when he's good, and we know what he's capable of. He's done it for Portugal. I thought the back end of last season, I thought he was quite good for us as well. But it is like, is he going to get the best out of Bruno? I think he's a manager that's known for getting the best out of people. I think Bruno can play deeper as an 8, and he likes to be quite direct, which again is maybe why Ineos have gone for him, because we have quite direct attackers: Højlund, Rashford, Garnacho. Sporting are, I think, ranked 5th across all of the leagues for direct attack, so it does suit the profile players we've got. And he likes his midfielders to be able to feed balls into the attacker. That is what Bruno can do. But we also know that Kobbie Mainoo, when he gets a little bit higher up and a bit more freedom, he can play some really good passes in there. That's in Kobbie's locker. I think the long-term plan would be Kobbie and Agate in the pivot, and I think Bruno would probably operate more as the second dual striker just behind Højlund, the guy that presses. But I think more so because I think Xerxes could be good at that, but we've not seen enough of Xerxes to see what level he's at. And I think Ahmad, we've not seen him in that kind of role, but he's capable of that, because for Sunderland, Ahmad almost played more as a sort of like a right-sided number 8. He was sort of quite a narrow winger. So we know that Ahmad can do that. But I think he'd probably try Bruno higher up in a Mainoo Agate pivot, and then maybe even Mainoo Casemiro pivot at times, because Casemiro, I think, has been getting better in those 8 positions. But I think Bruno is one that I think we'll have to see what happens with him this season, and how because if Bruno is good, he will stay around 100%. But I think because of his age and everything, he could be moved on, I think, quite soon anyway.
Yeah, I feel like it is. Like, I think natural age coming into it, we do have to move past it. I think it will. I'm not saying this is going to be Amorim that does this, but I just feel like you said then, profile, age, I think this will be the time when Bruno is actually sort of phased out of the side, and he would be an impact some in games as well, because I do believe he wants to stay. I just think his time in the starting lineup will be numbered going into the next 2 seasons. And I feel like Amorim will utilise him from there as well. I think he's the type of manager that will convince him that, you know what, we have to change up certain areas as well. He also likes to he also likes to build up from deep, as in centre backs are basically on the byline, spread across deeper than the 6-yard box, Alice. And I look at our centre backs, and I'm worried. I think everybody's worried with this. This is how he likes to draw in the press, and then, like you said, with the directness from there, that's how he utilises his attacks as well. Some of the time, not all the time, but this is his main ploy. So if he can attract the press, there are plenty of teams in the Premier League that will do this, which is why I think it's a positive for us. Profile of current defenders, how they fit in this mould of that deep lying build up from the back for you, Alice? Or is that, I know we're going to be losing probably 3 in the summer, is that where we invest heavily come the summer? If we're going to build from the back and start like build from defence, it's like the old saying, is that where we need investment? I'm looking forward to seeing Yoro, but the rest of them for you, are they up for it?
I think if you look at Inacio, we obviously linked them in the summer. Martinez, very similar profile to Inacio. The reason I wasn't convinced on Inacio in the summer was like, well, you can't play him with Leacher because they're very, very similar. So I think Leacher can do the Inacio role. I believe in Lissandro Martinez, even though he hasn't had the best start season at United. I'm sort of giving a lot of players a fresh start, saying, you know what, it's on Ten Hag, because Lissandro Martinez in the Copa America, him and Romero were unbelievable together. So I think Lissandro Martinez will be fine. I think he'll be the left centre back. I think he can do that role. I think he will be fine. Now, I've seen a lot of lineups that have De Ligt central centre back and Euro right centre back when people are drafting it, and I think that's fair. But I actually think both Euro and De Ligt would be more better at central centre backs. So I think what I've noticed is the left and the right centre back are the ones that sort of do it in the build up, and the central centre back steps more into midfield. Now, Lenny Euro at Lille was sometimes asked to step into midfield. That's something that John Stones has done at Manchester City. I think Ten Hag's tried to do it with Martinez as well in the past. So I actually think Lenny Euro, if he reaches his potential and becomes what he should be, I think long term would be the central centre back. and I think De Ligt will probably play there for now to start with, but I think Euro could do that role really well. That being said, I think because Euro's so young and there's so much more to come with him, he could also play as the right centre-back. I think the 3 centre-backs should be all right to do that job. I actually like De Ligt, Leacher and Euro, but we would definitely need 2 more centre-back signings, in my opinion. More just for depth as well. And I think there'll be question marks around all the centre-backs just because of what we've seen this season. I think Branthwaite could be one that doesn't stick me out as an Amorim player, but I just think for the physicality, potentially Maguire leaving. And then I think, maybe he could bring Diamonde from Sporting. I think that was a player that, is very highly rated. I think I'd much prefer him to Inacio. So if I was to look at it, I would say 2 centre-backs, because in my head, Maguire and Lindelof are going to leave. And then, but January, before the summer, has to be a left wing back. That's the number 1 priority. I think left wing back and 2 centre backs is probably the focus, then another midfielder, then another forward, if I was to pick 5 positions.
Yeah, I've got 6 players written down on my piece of paper here. You just mentioned 3 of them straight off the back. I went in with Inacio, the possibility. Diamande, definitely. Diamande will have 2 years left on his contract at the end of this season as well. So you're into negotiation territory right now. Opportunity knocks. I think his market value is around about 40 million at the moment. We know where Branthwaite is. He's not signing a new deal at Everton. So they're going to be stuck in a similar situation as well. Not thankfully, but unfortunately for us, they have picked up form and don't look like they're going to be getting relegated. I think that would have been an automatic, easy buy for United if Everton did go down. But I like Diamande as the different type of centre-back. I'm with you on that one. I think he will be less. I don't know, actually. We might not be able to get him less than Inacio, but I just look at options that we've got. I like them. We're obviously going to lose Maguire, Lindelof and Evans. We need to buy at least 2. I'm with you on that, definitely. I think Branthwaite, they will go back in. Is there anyone else that Manchester United will link with this summer you feel might go back in for? Or is it completely changed now with Amorim and his approach coming in, Alice?
It's difficult, really, because I think Branthwaite, we do really like him, and I think we will need someone physical. I think they'll probably still look at Branthwaite. It obviously depends how the season goes at Everton. He could have a crap season for Everton this year, and they might walk away. There was a couple of players that we weren't linked with that I wouldn't be totally shocked if we had a look at, and that would be Lukabar of RB Leipzig. But I don't know about the price because he signed a new contract. I just think in terms of like his ability on the ball, can play sort of that Leacher role, they might go for him there. But I don't know, like Hjulman we were linked to a little bit in the summer. But he's very similar to Agate. But if Casemiro leaves, I think we will go for someone who can cover Agate and compete with Agate for the 6th role. I think a lot of it depends on sales. And another one that wouldn't shock me is, again, as I said, he likes his wingers are almost very narrow. So, like how Cole Palmer can play sort of wing and number 10, but he's sort of a number 10 or a wide-sided 8. He's like a narrow winger. Whereas, other wingers like Kvaratskhelia are more of like a touchline winger. He prefers his narrow wingers, whereas Ten Hag's gone for Anthony and, a touchline winger. So someone that has the abilities to play as both 10 as a wing. So I wouldn't be surprised if he did look at Xavi Simons, who we're linked to in the summer, and maybe someone like Eze again. I don't think he's had the best start to the season with Palace, but I look at Xavi Simons, I look at Eze, I think potentially. And then a player we've been recently linked to that I think would be perfect, but I think there's no chance, is Alphonso Davies. I think he would be perfect. But
oh, God, yeah. The name keeps popping up and people keep asking me. And I was like, look, Real Madrid have been chasing Davies for 2 years. This is what Real Madrid do. They set the tone. They go in early. They know what the plays, and they always get them when they're out of contracts. They do it specifically, or not totally specific, but there's a lot of the time it comes from the German side, because the Germans are masters at this as well. It's like the way that the rules are now with transfers, like players and agents are running the game. I've always said this, and they will just say, look, we'll stay here. And like you've mentioned RB Leipzig there, Alice, and I think they've got the perfect mold. Obviously, our ties to RB now with Vivel being in charge in the recruitment side of things. We know that Benjamin Sesko is going to be sold by Leipzig. They usually do have a season where they would just completely cash in, and maybe a couple of big players would leave at the same time. We know Sesko is doing exactly what Haaland did, but obviously in the Dortmund side of things, he's staying for 1 more year, then moving on to the big club. Haaland went to Dortmund And obviously we're seeing Sesko stay another season, which is probably good, because I watched him in the Euros and he did look a little bit raw still. So another season of development in the Bundesliga for Sesko was definitely an ideal one. I don't think we've got the money to get players like this, but you mentioned midfielders there, Hulman as well, another sporting player there, captain at the moment. I'm like, I don't want to completely destroy Sporting. They've done us good in the past. We've had plenty of players there, and they do seem to be a bit of a feeder club for us. But the midfield, Casemiro leaving, Eriksen's going to be leaving as well. And you talked about that number 10 that plays wide. Eriksen plays that for Denmark and does it well. He plays as a double 10, but moves out more to the left-hand side in the attack. I think we're losing some key operators in the summer. And my worry, Alice, is I don't know about you, is like I just don't think we've got the funds to bring the right players in if we don't do well this season, that is. But I wanted to ask you about Sekou Kone as well, and the possibility of him stepping up, maybe, because Amorim has got a great reputation with youth players. So do you reckon we could tap in? You've talked about Amas being a profile for that left wing back. Sekou Kone coming in. Obviously, I think Obi Martin is still too young, 16, pushing it a bit, but obviously players do develop. Are you excited about what he can do with the academy players?
Yeah, for sure. Again, I think he's a guy that, obviously, Sporting being one of those clubs that's a selling club, they have to go for those young talents, develop them, sell them, and Amorim's proven to do that at Sporting, even like sort of players like, Poro Nunez Agate, they're not necessarily all academy players, but they're players that had been at Sporting very young. He developed them. That's what got them their big moves. You know what I mean? And I think for me, obviously, Euro isn't an academy player, but I think Euro is one of those players that we bring in young and that he can develop 100%. But I think profile-wise, Harry Amas, just because of his attacking abilities, is probably one that stands out for me. I think Obi Martin, obviously, it's very, very early days of him, but I think he is better than Wheatley. And I think Bean Sheary's been doing well. But I think if I look at Gyökeres, someone that can run the channel, someone that's quite physically dominant, I think Højlund will be a very good one for Amorim. But I think Obi Martin is the second closest when I compare him to Wheatley and Bean Sheary, what I've seen. I think Obi Martin probably has the highest ceiling. So I think Obi Martin and Amas are two on paper that just stick out to me. I think Sekou Kone, as I said earlier, I think what Amorim's noticeably done is wing backs and midfielders seem to look best in his system. If you look at all the big players that he sold at Sporting, and some of his best players, you always name midfielders or wing backs other than Gyökeres, who's now we're recently talking about. So I think the Sekou Kone could especially be one, because as you touched upon, if we don't get Champions League, we lose a lot of money because we're 2 years out of the Champions League as the sponsorships. I don't know how much money we're going to have to spend, but we sort of look at it and say we need at least one left back, left wing back, probably two when you really deep it. Because I think Shaw and Molasse could both go. We need two centre-backs. So that's three signings if we're just getting the one wing-back, two centre-backs, because Maguire and Lindelof will probably go. If Eriksen and Casemiro go, well, then we need two midfielders. And I think one of the midfielders we need might need to be a bit more technical, particularly to help out Maino. So you've got Adam Wharton, Stiller, potential names, but they're going to be a bit more on the pricey side. So it's like two centre-backs, two midfielders, a left-back, and then you need an attacking player. And that's not necessarily a striker, but someone that it could be an Eze, it could be a Mohamed Kudus type player that can play wing, can come quite central, but that's going to be expensive. So maybe they have to look at it and say, do we get the one midfielder, which I hope we get two, because I think we really need it. The depth of midfield is just crying right now because Mason Mount can't stay fit, Collier might be close to getting minutes at this rate if he wasn't injured. So I think Sekou Kone, in terms of what he has, is definitely one of the most exciting ones. And then I think there's just other players just to keep an eye on in the academy that I personally really like. I do like JC Fitzgerald. I think he's quite a technical, versatile player. Shea Lacey's an interesting one because, again, he can play quite centrally. I think he'll need to develop physically, but ability-wise, Shea Lacey for me is at the top as well. Yep. So there's definitely a lot of players in the academy that is quite exciting. There's this really beastly centre-back, and I've not seen a lot of him, but Godwill, I think that could be a player there one day as well, in terms of his physical build as well.
It's nice to be talking about a future under a different manager, isn't it? That you can actually feel
Yeah.
like, yeah, we're not going to waste this talent coming through, because there's so many academy players that were rushed through United and then they've just fallen into obscurity like the whole last 10 years. Like Fosu Mensah, Borthwick Jackson, players just jump out at me. Like, I'm just like, oh, Januzaj. I was like, wow, we've had good players, but I feel like we haven't managed them well. I'm actually happy that we've got a structure in place for Amorim coming in, because I think he would have been wasted at Manchester United 2 years ago. I think he would have just not had the support he needed. So I'm really happy where Ineos are at with the structure, and then bringing Amorim in now. I think that's why I feel it is going to be different with him rather than what it was in the previous years with other managers. But I don't know where the time's gone. Oh my God. Anyway, Alice, Ruud van Nistelrooy is the Manchester United manager right now. Quickly, give me your thoughts on the weekend, how you see it going. Are you hopeful that we can get that sort of bounce? I've not seen anything different tactically or sort of set up in play that we had under Ten Hag against Leicester. I'm not convinced by that game, even though it was nice to see us score goals. I'm kind of worried about Chelsea, but how would you set it up? Can you see anything different coming in? Similar lineup, or are you seeing a few changes?
I think it'll be very similar lineup. I think Casemiro Ugarte work well. I think it will have a bit more defensive structure to what we've seen under Ten Hag. I felt. Oh, camera's gone for some reason. But I think, yeah, it does that. It turns itself off. I'll be mid-stream, it just turns itself off for some reason. I think it'll be a very similar lineup to the Leicester game. I am nervous because Chelsea have been quite good this season. Even when Chelsea have dropped points, they've played well. I think Maresca is really actually most surprising one for me. I think Chelsea are doing a lot better than I thought, actually, in the way they're playing and stuff. I feel like Chelsea will beat us just because of what I've seen from Chelsea, and I don't think Ruud van Nistelrooy is going to make that many changes from Ten Hag ball. And I think Leicester did field a really weak squad, but then they also just feel the mental shift of Ten Hag going. The players are going to be more up for it. They know Amorim's going to be watching that game, so they know if they play well under Ruud, Amorim's going to be watching that game and go, well, he's good maybe. And weirdly, we do have a very good record versus Chelsea in recent years. We obviously, other than bottling it and conceding 2 goals in the 90th minute at Stamford Bridge last year, one of the worst games of the last season, I actually think Ten Hag got 4 past Chelsea in his second season, and we weren't, or was it the first season maybe, and we weren't at our best. I actually felt one of our best performances under Ten Hag was Chelsea at home last season. It was one of like the 3 games that I thought we played well last season was Chelsea at home. So we do have a good record versus Chelsea, and I think Maresca will want possession, and we might look to counter, and it could maybe work because I think that's how Liverpool beat Chelsea. They let Chelsea have possession, but this Man United team, Adam. They let us down. We're kind of used to it.
Yeah, it's the unknown again, isn't it? That is, I go into every game, every home game, whatever away games I can. It's just in pure hope. I'm hoping that changes with Amorim ball, but for now, look, I want it to go well for Ruud van Nistelrooy. I love the guy. I thought he spoke brilliantly yesterday, and he's just United, and that's all that matters. But that is our video. Alice, absolute legend. Thank you so much for spending the time and coming on the show. I'll put both of Alice's channel links in the description below. Please go and watch Alice's content. She goes into some serious deep dives on different profiles of players and all sorts of different content like that. So go and give Alice a watch there. And Alice, thank you for coming on. Absolutely loved that.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really good show. Really enjoyed talking about that. It's nice to feel quite positive for a change.
Yeah. Exactly that. Totally agree with that. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Make sure that you do give the video a like, subscribe to Forever United TV, of course, and obviously Alice's channels below. And we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching, everyone.